So the topic is enhancing brain function. I left out the two words made easy, but it is going to be easy. Nevertheless, it's very important. Now, this is an area that is not given much importance till we get struck down with some kind of dementia in old age. Um, Before we go on to the topic, just some background information. We now tend to live longer. If you look at the lifespans around the world, everywhere it has gone up. I quote the US statistics because very reliable and they have figures over a long period. And as you can see, the average lifespan has almost doubled, you can say. Of course, at that time, people said, oh, how can you have average ages up to 80? But they have achieved that today. And in fact, the 2012 figure for 100-year-olds, that is centenarians, they have counted 60,000 confirmed centenarians. Now, that's a large number of people who are beyond 100. Now, this kind of a long life brings its own challenges. And the main challenge is wear and tear of our body parts. There will be more incidents of joint problems. Instead of being used for about 50 years, now it's being used for 80 years. And of course, there are many other situations and conditions which make it more conducive for this wear and tear. There is more stress, the nutrition that we consume is less complete, we get less rest, and therefore we'll end up with quite a bit of wear and tear. Fortunately, we have found answers to most of it. Nevertheless, there are two areas that seem to give us problem even now. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, the heart takes precedence over the brain. Why? Because we get an immediate feedback. If there is a decrease in the efficiency of heart function, we feel tired, we get palpitations, we might even get chest pain. Now, so immediately the focus is on the heart, and rightfully so. Without a functioning heart, we won't be around. There's no time to look at other problems. If you have a heart problem which is, you can say, terminal or could lead to a sudden death. So it is important that we look at our hearts as number one. But at the same time, when it comes to the brain, we are not that serious till we get into problems. Now, the brain is number two in importance. The heart gives you life and maintains it. The brain gives you your personality, the living experience. If your brain is not functioning, then there's not much you can do to live. I'm not going to give you a lot of fancy figures, but something that bears importance, and that is the very structure and the function. Now, the brain consists of quite a large number of cells, as you can see. The estimated figure is 100 billion. In spite of that, it is only 2% of our body weight. But for that 2%, it uses almost 1/5 of the energy produced by the body. Now, that's an interesting fact here. 20% of body energy used. It looks like if you use your brain intensively, you might even achieve weight loss. Now, this is not to say that obese people are not using their head, but this is an experience all of us have gone through. If you're studying for an exam over a period of time, and at the end of it, if you see a friend or a relative who hadn't seen you for a while, they will tell you, hey, you have lost some weight, Intensive brain activity does reduce body weight because the total amount of energy used. And to achieve that, it requires, as you see at the bottom here, almost 1/4 of the total blood flow in the body. That's amazing. Now, the very fact that this kind of a support is given to an organ which is only 2% of body weight, obviously it is very important. The brain requires high maintenance. When we say high maintenance, we are not looking at the cost, but rather the care. And it better be kept at that high level of maintenance. Now, look at the work that we do. Uh, most of us require a very efficient functioning brain. Otherwise, we cannot progress in our careers. And therefore, it is utmost importance that we keep the brain functioning at its optimal level. I would separate the brain function into two parts. One is the intellectual function, which at the same time is also based on the physical health of the brain. The brain has to be healthy so that the intellectual function can be optimal. To be able to do that, okay, for the intellectual function, we are told that you need to keep mentally active. Now, if you notice, I put it as in all areas of interest. Now, when they say mentally active, they usually give you a long list of what you need to do. You don't have to do all that. It has been found that to keep the brain functioning well, we need to have an active interest, active attitude just in the areas that interest us. Now, this is not to say that you should neglect everything else, but the areas of maximum interest or most interest to you, you should keep up with it. That will take the function of the brain to very high levels of intellectual function. Now, at the same time, you must look for new challenges. I would combine the first and the second in a way where you are looking for new challenges in the areas of your interest. Personally, I would say every 4 to 5 years, you must review the area of interest that you are pursuing to find out whether there's anything new happening. Challenge your basic concepts in the areas that have been you have been interested all the while. Now, to be able to do that, you need to have a brain that is physically functioning well. Now, if you look at the brain, it's very unusual. It takes in a lot of information every day, and therefore it needs time to process this information. That is why we sleep 1/3 of our lifespans. So if you live to be about 80 years old, you probably would have slept 25 years straight. Now that's a long time. Why does the body require that kind of time of rest? Simply because it has to process all the information that we put in consciously and information that comes in unconsciously. A lot of information comes from the environment which we are not conscious of. Sound, background, music, whatever. Now this has to be processed, and the useful ones need to be stored so that later when you need it, it can be pulled out with ease. Now, because the brain is a physical organ, it also needs time for repair, and that takes place around the same time that you rest. Now, the brain functions non-stop, unlike most other organs. One of the signs of a good deep sleep is you must have dreams. Do you remember? When you are young, you have more dreams, and that's the time we sleep better. Nowadays, we sleep very light and we do not dream. In fact, if you do not dream during your sleep, then daytime while you're working, you may have to daydream. The brain will extract that time to make sure that that function is performed to some extent. Now, I cannot overemphasize rest and repair for your brain. They have found that if you do not have enough rest, in old age, dementia sets in earlier. If you do not give enough time to repair your brain, which is living tissue, by the way, the brain is not only living, it is pulsating. Yes, it doesn't pulsate as much as a heart, but if you open up the skull and look at the raw brain of a living person, it actually pulsates, because the brain is a very soft organ. Every time blood is pumped into it, it expands a little and contracts. Let's go on to the nutrition. The brain is a living organ. We need to supply nutrition for it to do the repair. Now, it is estimated that after the age of 15 or 16, we lose about 30,000 nerves in our brain. Sounds frightening. I myself find it difficult to believe this, but this is what scientists tell us. But they also reassure us, as we increase our intellectual ability and continue to use it actively, every nerve cell develops more and more branches, and this more than makes up for the brain cells that are lost. So in other words, aging seems to be something that we cannot stop, but nevertheless, we can combat that by keeping it active. So very true for our physical bodies and for our brain also. How do we keep the brain active? Be actively involved in the work that we are doing. Do not do your work reflexively. Always think about what you are doing. Challenge it even when you are sitting quietly. Have you seen some people doing crossword puzzles all the time? That's an excellent way of stimulating your brain. Now, the brain requires a lot of energy, as we saw, but at the same time, it requires a very simple energy, sugar, glucose. So, not to worry about the energy part of it. But the maintenance of the brain cell requires very specific nutrition. Now, when it comes to nutrition, we must remember that brain is 60% fat. Now, that doesn't mean we go on and eat all the fried food in town to make up for that. The kind of fat that is needed is very healthy fat. Now, why do you need so much fat? With 100 billion wires, the nerve cells are wires actually of the human body. You need insulation of the wire, otherwise you get short circuiting. If you look into a very complicated electrical circuit in a company, if a couple of wires touch each other, there is short circuiting. Sometimes there is a disease where certain areas lose the fat covering of the brain cells, and they get short circuiting, and that part of the brain is affected, and the function that is performed by that part of the brain is either handicapped or lost. And this usually happens in people who are in middle age and above. We don't know why it happens, but the person can become handicapped and actually die. So brain fats are very, very important. Now, how do you fulfill this? I would suggest that everyone take omega-3 fish oil. Make sure you have generous servings of fish once or twice a week. Now, what is important within the cell of the brain is minerals. Now, minerals are literally electrical charges. The brain nerves function by electrical charges. These are the charges that we measure when we measure the brain, just like the ECG for the heart. For the brain, it's called EEG. The circulatory system goes into the brain, but from the circulatory system, many things cannot get into the tissue of the brain. There is a barrier to it, which is called the blood-brain barrier. It is basically to protect us so that not any poison that gets into the body gets into the brain. Fortunately, these minerals are the ones that can cross through. Okay, and when we say minerals, we are talking about all the minerals in the body, not just the calcium and the magnesium and potassium and so on. Even the minor ones like manganese, chromium, selenium, these need to get into the brain cells for it to function completely. The circulatory system goes into the brain, but from the circulatory system, many things cannot get into the tissue of the brain. There is a barrier to it, which is called the blood-brain barrier. It is basically to protect us so that not any poison that gets into the body gets into the brain. Fortunately, these minerals are the ones that can cross through. Okay, and when we say minerals, we are talking about all the minerals in the body, not just the calcium and the magnesium and potassium and so on. Even the minor ones like manganese, uh, chromium, selenium, these need to get into the brain cells for it to function completely. Now, vitamins, I think this is something everybody knows. Vitamins are very important for brain function, very specifically the B complex vitamins. If there is a nerve problem, almost any hospital outpatient clinic will prescribe you vitamin B1, B2 and B6, sometimes including B12 also. Many elderly people are given that, diabetic people are given that because they need that in higher amounts, not by the body, higher amounts because they absorb very little of that. So vitamins are given. Now, the last one, the antioxidant, is something that is new. In modern lifestyles, because of stress and exposure to pollutants, we experience a lot of what is called free radical activity. That causes a lot of damage to all the cells. And the cells that are very easily or more prone to damage includes reproductive cells, that's ovary and sperm cells in the male, and also nerves. Now this free radical activity increases very much if you are a diabetic, and that's one of the reasons they lose sensation in their feet and hands. For that you need a good antioxidant. So if you want to keep your brain, not just the brain, even the nerves that come out from the brain all over the body well, you need this nutrition. This will give you a good physical basis for your intellectual functions. Now, the vitamins that are provided in Vemma are such that the basic vitamins A, B, C, D, and E in one serving provides you 100% of your daily requirement. And that includes the full range of B complex, B2, B1, 2, B5, B6, B12, and some of them which are not numbered like folic acid, inositol, and so on. So the full complement of all the basic vitamins are available in Vemma. Now, the next one is minerals. The minerals that are found in Vemma are not found in very many products in the market. This is not just the basic calcium, magnesium, so on. It has got the full complement of 62, at least 62, 63 minerals which are plant-based. These are extracted from very ancient plants. So it's of vegetarian origin, and not just to satisfy the vegetarians. When it is of vegetable origin, it is much easier absorbed and utilized by the body. And antioxidants. The finding about antioxidant is taking one kind of antioxidant is not good enough. You have to take a variety. Certain antioxidants help certain tissues more than other tissues. So a wide variety is very important. Of course, you need to keep your diet as wide as possible. Eat a diet where you have a wide variety of healthy choices. Additionally, this whole preparation comes as a liquid. Now, if you take a solid, if all these preparations are put in the form of a tablet, your absorption will depend on the health of your digestive system. And most people who need supplements do not have a very healthy digestive system. So absorption can vary anywhere from 30 to 40%, right up to about 60 or 70. But when you have a liquid, absorptions can go or exceed 90% of what you take. So Vemma has provided all the above mentioned minerals, vitamins, and antioxidants in a liquid form, and they are plant sourced minerals, so vegetarians have no problem, shouldn't have any problem taking it. Absorption is much better. Sorry, plant source minerals, the utilization is much easier by the body. And the wide variety of antioxidants which I talked about earlier. It is formulated by our in-house scientist. This is not a third party. This scientist is a full-time employee of Vemma. This is a medical doctor who's also got a PhD in nutrition, and he formulated this. Now, it is not only formulated by us, it is produced by factories owned by Vemma. So no one can cheat or modify the product or sell the formula to someone else. So it's formulated by our full-time in-house scientists, produced by Vemma. Now, hardly any nutritional substances are clinically tested. All drugs are clinically tested, but nutritional substances are not. Nevertheless, Vemma has taken the trouble to test this Vemma product on patients, and it has been published in peer-reviewed journals. 2 studies have been published, and they have clearly shown that there is an increase in the immune system response, 1. Number 2, a reduction in the inflammation of the body. I can think of only another company which did some clinical testing out of the 500 or so nutrition companies in the American market. Now, that company did some testing about 35 to 40 years ago. After that, not many people do that. So here, let me show that slide again. Now, this is very important. All that is mentioned here, particularly the last one. So if you decide to try out Vemma, you're fortunate to get a very high quality product which will help you in your quest to maintain a healthy brain and mental activity till quite late in life. I'm going to stop here, and Yukai has got an announcement to make.